Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hey, good morning. How you doing? So when I saw that rain this morning, I thought, I'm not taking the bus. I don't want to stand there and get soaked. So I drove down. I've been meaning to say this about those new-fangled parking meter things. Did they figure out how to put them at a height where no one can comfortably see the screen? There's like a new profile that you see on the sidewalks of Pittsburgh now, and it's of somebody sort of crouched down to see the screen, and sometimes going like this to keep, the sun from shining out so they can see what Now I'm thinking, okay, you're tall, and so you can't expect that some kind of an object that is to be used by the entire populace should be at your height. So I'm used to having to come down. But I don't know. Is it just change that's difficult? I guess it is. I'll tell you, for the first time in my life, I sure as heck know my license plate number. Because the way these things work, if you haven't encountered one, is you have to input your license plate number. Then you give them a credit card. Then you tell them how much you want to put on the credit. I don't know. And you don't have to put anything on your car dashboard, which the old system did. But what's interesting is the old system, people helped their neighbor with that one. I'm assuming some of you had the wonderful experience of perhaps pulling into a parking lot and having somebody getting into their car about to leave, and they pull their little thing off their dashboard and they say, hey, I've got an hour and a half left on mine. Do you want it? And you'd say, heck yeah. And so you take theirs and stick it on your dashboard, and you don't pay a penny. They already pay. You can't do that anymore. And wasn't it just pretty much yesterday that they put in that system? You wonder, I'd hate to see what that cost, and then I'd hate to see what this costs, and I can't figure why they don't just find something. I suppose this system, excuse me while I babble, is better in that it does, and I don't know if they knew this, creates more parking spaces because the spaces are not defined by a parking meter anymore. And consequently, people in a downtown in which parking is at such a premium are tightening up. And so there has to be at least 2 to 3 more cars getting in on a long block like we're on. So that's the good news. I don't know. All right. It tells me that at 11:27 I turn into a pumpkin. So I got plenty of time. Right? Don't even ask what it cost. You can't believe it. You push the dollar button and it says, okay, you can stay here for 4 minutes. Push another dollar. Okay, 4 more. It's it's unbelievable. Parking downtown. Oh, dare I get into all this? I guess. You guys really want to talk about what's in the news? Oh, Lord. I saw the cutest YouTube video of dolphins looking at themselves in the mirror. Let me see. Did I see that on... I might have seen that on News Nuggets, so it'd be available to you as well readily. And it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. Because most animals, and I'm sure you've noticed this, most animals, it seems, do not really get the mirror. They aren't interested. I don't know. I've often wondered, do they not see that their image? And sometimes it seems that if they do, that they don't understand that it's their own image. They think it's somebody else that they're looking at, another dog, another cat, another bird. But the dolphins clearly know that they're looking at themselves, and the joy they have in looking at themselves and in playing with it's in News Nuggets today. So that's Daily News Nuggets. This is the blog, the aggregating blog put out by Jared Day, who is a history professor at Carnegie Mellon and who calls the show on occasion. I'm very happy whenever I hear his voice. And it is the last item that he has in today's Daily News Nuggets. And check it out. Daily News Nuggets, by the way, spelled Daylee, News Nuggets. And enjoy. The dolphins look at themselves and they turn, they come up, they look to see how they look from this angle, they look to see how they look from that angle, then they go upside down and sort of swim by the mirror and then come back and swim by again, and they're just thrilled. It is so cute. You could die. You could just die looking at it. Check it out. I absolutely... Anyway, he got it from CNN via YouTube. I guess it's accessible that way as well. What fun. Actually, since I'm at News Nuggets now, I will point out that he has a number of interesting pieces on Senator Rand Paul going to Howard University. This is a predominantly, to say the least, African-American university. And he said to the students, "I'm either brave or crazy to be here." And he said that because Republicans generally wouldn't bother to go to a venue like that. Black people don't vote for him. They would not feel that they were welcome. They would fear hostility in the reception. And a number of people have written about what Rand Paul said to these Harvard University students. And a lot of people have suggested that it shows that he was, well, the adjective would not be brave, and the adjective is not crazy. The adjective is clueless. He lectured them on their own history. He lectured them as if he felt that they did not know. He tried to let them know that it was a Republican who freed the slaves, like they didn't know. He tried to tell him, Frederick Douglass was a Republican. The people who founded the NAACP, those were Republicans. And he actually at one point apparently said, "Do you know?" And this booming, resounding yes came back to him. And I think, well, let's go to Josh Marshall because he writes for Talking Points. And he says that the Republicans are so into their own reality and own universe, and they have told themselves over and over again, well, we're the party who, I guess these poor black people just don't even know that we're the ones that are their champions. We're the ones. I bet they don't even know that Frederick Douglass was a Republican. Marshall says here's what happens when a conservative steps out of the Republicans' tightly drawn racial nonsense bubble and hits an audience that is not dying to be convinced that the Republicans' problems with non-whites are the results of huge misunderstandings about a Republican Party that is actually the best thing that ever happened to black people. So the gist of what happened yesterday, says Josh Marshall, when Rand Paul went to Howard University, was that Ron Paul took his clown show to an audience at a historically black college where, they actually do know that Lincoln freed the slaves and that Frederick Douglass was a Republican, and they'd even heard about the Dixiecrats. And the fact that Rand Paul was surprised that he wasn't imparting some wisdom to them that these poor people had never been taught, that they already knew this, and yet they still rejected the Republican Party. Josh Marshall says his surprise was akin to one of those old Bugs Bunny cartoons where Bugs' nemesis walks over a loose floorboard and the board flies up and whaps the guy right in the face. The Republicans, you see, can become so lost in their own story that they confuse conciliation with aggression. The GOP is so deep into its own self-justifying racial alternative reality that there really is genuine surprise when their claptrap doesn't survive first contact with actual black people. So I guess crazy is not really the word, Senator Paul, and brave is not really the word, Senator Paul. But I would say clueless is a possibility, and something else that comes to mind, condescending, comes to mind. I'm going to this black university, and I'm going to teach these black people their history. Now, speaking of the difficulty that the Republicans have reaching out to black Americans, a number of polls show that, believe it or not, they've got more trouble with Asian Americans than with Hispanics. African Americans, huge trouble. Hispanics, huge trouble. Asian Americans, even bigger trouble. And man, this has all those white folks in the GOP so mixed up They say, well, how can the Asian Americans be against us? They are hardworking, they are well educated, and they're rich often. And they're family oriented. Why, they're made for us. Here's one of the adjectives that they employ for Asian Americans that is a reason why Asian Americans do not vote for Republicans. Yes, they're wealthier than most demographic groups. Yes, they're family-oriented. And yes, they're more highly educated. But it's that last one, highly educated, that prevents them from being in any way comfortable with a party that is so adamantly anti-intellectual. Think of all the Asian faces you see at CMU if you walk the campus. And they're often in the sciences and in technology. They're going to join a party that thinks that the earth was created 7,000 years ago, or whatever the hell they think. 8,000, is it? 3/4 of Asian Americans in this country voted for Barack Obama in the last election. I think that's a little bit bigger than the Hispanic vote. And so the Republican chairman, Reince Priebus, has announced that the RNC has actually hired 2 people to be field operatives in the Asian American community. I hope they had the good sense to hire Asian Americans, but one never knows. So they've hired 2 people whose job it is to go out and evangelize, essentially, Asian Americans and tell them, look, we are the ones you should be listening to. Here's what one of the Republicans says. The party has simply ignored this community completely. Until we go into that community and try to sell our platform, we can't jump to the conclusion that they're turning away from us because they don't agree with our policy. Well, again, this shows a level of cluelessness. If they're highly educated, odds are they're turning away from you because they disagree with your policy. And the only way you're going to attract them, Republicans, is not sending missionaries into their communities, but in fact, putting out policies that they find compatible to their own. 67% of Asian American voters favor raising taxes on the wealthy. Whoops. 21% want to increase defense spending, which is well below the national average and puts them obviously in the Democrats' camp. The new Congress that came to Washington in January included a record number of Asian American representatives. Not one of them was a Republican. And all the Republican Party need do to wonder what all they need to do if they're wandering around in the desert, wondering where they've gone wrong, is just look at themselves, literally, and be blinded by the white. So I guess that makes Rand Paul courageous in going into the African American community. But look how he went. He went like so many missionaries have in the past. Not all, but so many. He went as their superior who came to lecture them on their own history. Wow. So speaking of that and where people sit and stand and are comfortably ensconced, what happened to my email all of a sudden? It went kaplooey. Oh, I got it. The Wall Street Journal released a poll today that also shows the Republicans they're just in huge trouble. Support for gay marriage. Listen to this. In 2004, that's not that long ago, is it? 2004? Support for gay marriage in America was at 30%. 2/3 of Americans thought the idea of gay marriage was insane. Support for gay marriage today is at 53%. To go from 30 to 53 in less than 10 years shows a kind of juggernaut that you better jump out of the way. And the Republican Party is standing, as usual, smack dab in the center of the track. And they're going to get mowed down by this. The poll found a shift in Americans' views about, and this is again, Republicans are going to get sick when they hear this, found a shift in Americans' views about whether society should promote traditional values or encourage greater tolerance of people with varying value systems. Now, we know where the Republicans stand. They would say traditional values is the bedrock of where they stand. And the Democrats would argue that they value tolerance, diversity, and that is their value. Well, let's see where the American people stand. Overall, the share of Americans saying tolerance is a higher priority has increased in the last 14 years from 29% in 1999 to 44% today. That is another huge, quick rise. And you'll say 44%, well, they're still in the minority, tolerance over family values. It's still family values beating tolerance. Check out the momentum. Check out the graph. Just like gay marriage. Just like legalization of marijuana. Do you know the one social issue that doesn't show this, that doesn't show the rise to the Democratic Party position and the floundering and the abandonment by the people of the Republican position? The one incendiary issue, social issue, that you don't see this trend? Abortion. Views on abortion remain pretty much intractable. They don't move. In fact, you can argue that if they've ticked at all, they've moved more, I think, toward an anti-abortion stance. And I think that is a direct result of the extraordinary tenacity and often brilliant marketing of the pro-life lobby. So there you have it. All in all, this poll shows that people are much more comfortable in terms of policy with the policies expounded by the Democratic Party. And they turn from the Republican Party's positions. And then all you have to do is look at those demographics. Asian Americans, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans. About the only group that the Republicans hold are old, white men. That's it. And if you're looking toward the future, that's not a reality you want to see if you're a Republican. Okay, well, I think it's time for me to... there was an article this past year, writes Melanie, in Time or Newsweek about the intelligence of animals. It was really interesting. There are also certain birds and chimps that recognize themselves in a mirror. Okay, that's great. You gotta look at this dolphin video. They're just, oh gosh, you could just eat them up. I didn't mean that. You do not want to eat the dolphin meat. Okay, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
It's warming up outside, so get to Little's for all your spring needs. Little's has everything for men, women, and children to stay in style for this upcoming hot summer. Lots of great colors from Dansko, New Balance, Steve Madden, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for the latest on the upcoming mayoral election. Plus, Joshua Bell, Artie Lang, Joey Bada, and Southside Meat Pies. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
So the World Meteorological Association, I know, I didn't know there was one either. The World Meteorological Organization has retired the name Sandy from their hurricane list, from the official list of Atlantic hurricanes, just to be totally correct about the information I'm giving you. And obviously, you know, we can figure they retire a name when that name has become too well known, when that name bespeaks an event that caused such damage, financial and in terms of death and destruction, that to use the name again would be insensitive and or confusing. There can only be one now, Hurricane Sandy. And in fact, Sandy is the second most costly hurricane that the United States has ever seen. The first being, of course, Katrina. And Katrina is also a name that you will never see again. That name was retired as well. But I got to tell you, I'm so confused by this information because, listen to this and see if my memory I know is no good, but tell me if you remember, they say that in 2005, more names were retired by this World Meteorological Organization than ever before. It was a nasty, nasty year for hurricanes. And in fact, 2005 was Hurricane Katrina. So Katrina was one of those that was put out of the list in 2005. But listen to the others that in that year were taken off the list of names that can be given to Atlantic hurricanes. There were a ton of them that year. Katrina, Dennis, Rita, Stan, and Wilma. Now I ask you, let's go back, revisit what we were told about how a name gets taken off. A name gets taken off when it conjures up such memory and such horror that it would be confusing and or insensitive to use it again. Hurricane Stan? You remember a Stan?
Rita's the only one I remember.
Rita sounds, yes, I agree. Rita sounds like something I've heard. Katrina, yes. Stan? Wilma? Oh, that dreaded Hurricane Wilma. And that they got to a W. So Wilma would be way out. Help me here. Dennis? Dennis was retired too. Oh, yes, the horror of Hurricane Dennis, followed apace by Hurricane Wilma. I'll never forget them. Well, they don't even ring a bell. I think Dennis rings a vague bell, but Wilma sure as hell doesn't, and Stan doesn't, and they would have had to be really, really, really bad to get retired. In the whole history of naming hurricanes, 77 names have been retired. And in that 1 year, all of those were. So I'm thoroughly confused because I don't recall those names. Stan and Wilma. It sounds like they should be in, I know, just because Wilma makes me think of the Flintstones. Yeah, caller, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, maybe you could answer my question.
Probably not.
Why is it that people keep building their homes in where these wildfires are, where these hurricanes are, and then we keep rebuilding? We keep repeating history like Katrina. Now, those people say, no, you know what, we're going to relocate you. We'll pay for it. We'll take care of it, but don't do it anymore. But what do? They keep building them over and over and over, keep spending money. It just boggles the mind.
Well, private insurance companies won't touch those properties, which is why the federal government insures those properties. And you and I, taxpayers, help to perpetuate this absurd cycle.
Oh, yes. You might as well go build your house by a volcano. I mean...
Yeah, right. Build it right there on the lip of the volcano.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Bye. I have to tell you, I knew I wouldn't be able to answer this question. I don't know. You tell me. If they knew they would receive no relief other than helping them get someplace, and no one would build. I guess the problem is, because I wondered aloud about it here, when the spring floods often would come here, and people living along the creeks and in certain areas, just they flood year in, year out. And I remember saying once to someone in the newsroom at Channel 4, why the hell don't they get out? Why would you keep staying in a place that is going to be destroyed? Why? And I was told, and this makes some sense, no one will buy that property. They can't sell it. So they're stuck. They're stuck there. It's, that anything they've got is that house in that property. And no one wants to buy it because people aren't idiots. Or did I just say that? and so I understand that. But that we and government would be party to continuing to, or trucking in sand, like they're rebuilding the beaches that were washed away in New Jersey. And it's foolishness. It's foolishness. it's... I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. The more we talk, it seems, about these issues, the more you just throw up your hands. That's why I said at the beginning I was a little reluctant to even get started today. Because why do we want to talk about this stuff? It just drives you nuts. We were talking yesterday, Sokolowski and me, about, look at the world. You got Kim Jong-un, this friggin' idiot, playing with nuclear missiles. And you have all the, anywhere you look, you have some other nonsense going on. This is how the world works? This is how the world works. I guess so. It's run by fools, by egomaniacal children, and we all just have to hope that they don't destroy the whole thing. Oh, here's a piece I loved today. Maybe you've heard this. This looks like a story that would definitely make the television news. TV news would go nuts over this story. And since I don't watch it usually, I wouldn't know. So there was a Uni-Mart on Brownsville Road that got held up. Did you hear about this the other day? In Carrick. And the robber walked in. He pointed a gun at the poor clerk. Well, I shouldn't say the poor clerk, because this is one of those stories where the clerk says, like hell, buddy. And the clerk is someone I want to give his name because, geez, Tom Sayenga. So he's got a gun pointed in his face, and so he goes into the cash register, and he appears to be about to hand this money over to the thief, and the thief, in fact, does take the money. But as Mr. Sayenga, the clerk, is giving him the money, he also somehow grabbed the man's gun with his other hand, and then, because he had now another free hand because the money was in the robber's hand, he says he took the man's face and pile-drived it into the counter. It's like TV. He did. Pile-drived it into the counter, and he's not done yet. Pile-drived his face into the counter. He then chambered around in the gun and pointed the gun at the man who now probably had a broken nose and said, "Get the hell out of here." He didn't call the police. He said, "Get out." And the guy threw the money in the air and ran. Okay, so then he calls the cops. Enter the Pittsburgh robbery squad, and they have the gun. It's a 9mm Beretta, the gun that the clerk grabbed. So this tells you something about having records on guns. They ran it through and found out that it was registered. That gun was registered. That was a legal gun. And it was registered to Joseph Kamey Jr. So, who, by the way, is a city firefighter. They went over to the city firefighter's house. They found him sitting on the front porch. They said to him, "Do you have a gun?" And he said, "Yeah, I used to have 3, but I sold them all." And then he was asked, "Okay, well, when did you last have your Beretta?" And the firefighter said, "Today." He gave up that. He knew he had. He said, "Today, I already know what you're here for, but I'm not saying anything." Well, I think you've said more than enough. I already know why you're here, but I'm not saying anything. And so we have one, again, Pittsburgh firefighter in his off hours and robbing a convenience store, attempting to rob a convenience store, and showing himself to be totally inept at this extracurricular pursuit. And I hope he was a better firefighter. I'm speaking in the past tense because even in this city where firefighters and cops can seemingly commit crimes and still remain employed by us, I got a feeling this guy is off the force. Although he isn't yet, as far as I know. So there you have it. But let's hear it for that clerk. Man! You know, they say don't try to do that stuff. You know, don't try to do it. It looks easy on television. Boom, 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 boom. And he did it. Just totally did it. That's totally cool. Margaret writes that the next up is Hurricane Ida. Has there been a Hurricane Ida? I don't think so. If there is, I hope it's a doozy. I mean, if there's a hurricane that's your name, I mean, you'd want it to be memorable. Would you want your hurricane retired? I guess maybe not, because then it would be, I don't know. But you wouldn't want to have your name appended to some fizzle, right? Well, it's up to you. I don't know. I think mine's already been used. Hurricane Lynn sounds like it'd be a fizzle. I mean, Lynn as a name is sort of an insipid name. Lynn. Lynn. So that just doesn't sound like a good hurricane name. But Ida sounds like something to be afraid of. Be very afraid. It's raining again. Oh, well. When April showers your way. Oh, if she's singing, this is a very bad turn. How about if we take a break and we'll come back? I want to talk a little bit about this gun control stuff in a minute.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to barkbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 20% for Nordstrom gift cards. Supplies limited. barkbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. barkbargains.com.
All right, I've gone through all the tracks. Just move through the beats. Do your thing.
All right, everyone, let's hear it for West High's own Brooke Turner, a.k.a. DJ Hook.
Scratching at my first school dance takes confidence. So we're getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org. Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All right. By the way, Margaret has written back saying I was just kidding about Hurricane Ida. Well, of course you were just kidding about Hurricane Ida. You're always kidding. We got your number, I believe. And David Schuster will be interviewing Mumia Abu-Jamal. It says here. The guy on death row, of course, who's not on death row anymore, right? They took him off death row, I think. I'm trying to remember. There's been so many. Blah, 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 blah. I think Mumia, is now secure from that, although certainly is going to be spending the rest of his life in prison. Okay, what I want to talk about the gun control thing is, okay, so everybody is like happy as can be because the Senate, this vote, they had well over 60 votes yesterday, And understand, well over 60 votes to simply allow this debate to take place, to allow the possibility of a bill on gun control. And lest anybody get too excited here, the New York Times points out today that the NRA and others, but mostly, of course, the NRA, has already told the senators that voted to allow the debate that they're not going to get good grades. And those grades can destroy them, as they know. This is why the NRA has such power. They fear, these elected officials, a bad grade from the NRA, because then that is used against them when they run for re-election, and often means the end of their career. The NRA, never one to stop, has lined up some of its minions who will be offering amendments during this debate. And these amendments are all intended to destroy any bill getting through. And if you don't understand that, I mean, let's say you've got a measure that says we're going to have background checks at what Toomey and Manchin came up with. Going to have background checks pretty much everywhere, including gun shows, okay? That's the bill. Now, what you will see happen is senators like Rand Paul, when he's not telling black people their own story, and Ted Cruz, this new doozy of a senator that the state of Texas has foisted upon us all, they will be putting in amendments. Here's one. And this is a priority of the NRA, this amendment. They've been wanting to get this through for a long time. It would require, get this, every state in the country to honor a concealed gun permit from any other state. So let's just put it this way. Let's say you live in a state that actually makes it difficult to have a concealed gun, that doesn't just hand out these permits willy-nilly. And you have that because that's what your people want. That's what the citizens of that state want. What the NRA wants to do is to ensure that if somebody in that state wants a concealed carry permit, all they got to do is, for instance, go to Florida. Just get over to Florida, get their permit there, because Florida hands them out like, just, hey, you want one? Come here. Florida has deliberately lax laws. And Florida's been known to give out, they have given hundreds of concealed carry permits to felons. So all you got to do is go to Florida, and then you can come up with your concealed gun, even if you're a felon, I guess, and you can use it in Connecticut, and you can use that in New York, and New York and Connecticut are going to have to accept that, even though their law says you shouldn't be able to carry it. Well, if this amendment were to be attached to the background check bill, and in fact, the New York Times reports there may in fact be enough votes to have that be a reality, then the New York Times maintains that the background check law is not worth passing. They will try, what's going to happen now is they will append enough outrageous things to this bill that even the people who want background checks will not vote for it anymore. Here's another potential killer amendment. This one Senator Lindsey Graham has, and this one blows my mind. Senator Graham is expected to try to tack an amendment on the background check law that would reverse current law and allow people, get this, allow people who have been involuntarily committed to a mental institution to own a gun. Now, why I find this so unbelievable is that I thought one of the things that the Republicans were saying after the most recent carnage was that we've got to do something about these mental health. We've got to find these people. We've got to do something about these crazy lunatics. It's not the guns, it's the crazy lunatics. But here's Graham saying he wants to allow crazy lunatics to own guns. Excuse me. They're killing me. They're killing me. In Graham's bill, the only way you could keep somebody who has been involuntarily institutionalized from getting a gun is if they are found to be in imminent danger. Well, and believe it or not, that you don't even need that standard to get them into some institutions. And you know how hard it is to get somebody involuntarily committed now. It's unbelievable. Other amendments that the NRA and its water carriers and our U.S. Senate have in their back pockets ready to try to destroy the background check bill. Other proposed amendments would lift the ban on gun ownership by mentally ill veterans. Because they're veterans, and it doesn't matter if they're mentally ill and suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome and have hair trigger tempers and have been known to beat up their wives. If they've been a veteran, then damn it, the least we could do is give them a gun. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Len, it's PJ from Greensburg.
Hi, PJ.
Didn't you hear me yelling at you when you went to break and you said you were bringing up the gun control issue?
No.
Yelling, no, don't do it.
Why? Why?
It is nothing. Well, it is nothing but a point of complete and total frustration.
Yeah.
The way it's discussed, the way things happen. I mean, there are, the Republicans are fond of saying just enforce the laws that are already on the books.
Yeah.
Well, there are very, very good laws already on the books. But as you're showing, they put in little amendments, they pass little laws that completely undermine and take the teeth out of any of those laws.
Or, in fact, in this case, what I guess the Times is trying to warn people, it could be that you don't even those who want the background checks, it won't be worth it if you're going to then allow these other measures to take effect.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You're
passing the gun control, or the background check, but you're giving on points that make it even worse.
That's right.
And the other thing I'm not going to say I told you so or in general, but I knew this was going to happen.
Sure.
I mean, everybody said, "Oh, this time it's different. This time there's those 20 babies." No, it is no different. And you immediately after the massacre, you would hear liberals and in the conversation would come up and they would say, well, we have to discuss this. I don't want to take anybody's guns away. I back the Second Amendment, but we have to discuss this. Right immediately, as soon as the conversation began, they were giving ground. The people on the gun control side were giving ground.
Yeah.
And we continue to do it. And the other thing that drives me crazy is the so-called liberal media. I saw a really, and I don't know what news station it was on yesterday, a really great segment about, superficially, about the Republicans and the Democrats coming together to agree not to filibuster this and at least bring it up for a vote. Now, I say superficially because it didn't dig into the details that you're digging into, and it didn't say this thing doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell, or this thing is going to be so undermined that it'll be worthless. It was just about them getting along long enough.
It was a feel-good story about how all of a sudden, these guys are not dysfunctional.
Exactly, and you know what they ended the story with? Look how well they're getting along. The NRA says this is terrible. Why did they have to bring up the NRA? There was no reason to even bring the NRA into the discussion. Everybody. Well, some people say the NRA is a paper tiger at this point. Some people say no, they still have a lot of power because they have plenty of money.
I got to tell you, for a paper tiger, it's pretty impressive.
Well, but here's the thing: what if it's like the old saying? What if we had a war and nobody showed up? What if the NRA was running their mouth, screaming about this, and nobody gave them any credence? We don't care. You're not an elected official. You are not elected. You get no say in this. We don't have Senator A from the Republican Party and Senator B from the Democratic Party, and then an NRA official with them discussing this.
Well, the only way to make these craven politicians stop cowering, their knees knocking at this, when the NRA is glowering at them, is to have an equally tough-minded and deep-pocketed and unforgiving lobby on the other side. And I think that's what Mayor Bloomberg is trying to do with his mayors against mayors for gun control, whatever his organization is called. If you have another group saying to these same jerks, hey, you're not just getting a report card for the NRA, you're getting a report card from us, buddy, and we represent a whole ton of people in your district, and we are going to fund advertisements against you and for your opponent if you do exactly what the NRA does.
Well, they kind of did that in, where was it?
Jesse Jackson's seat.
Yeah, exactly. Jesse Jackson Jr.
That's not a good one. Because that's a definite blue district that's not.
That was blue on blue vibe.
Yeah, right. So that's not a good indicator. But if they're so afraid that they're going to get targeted by the NRA, let's have them have another fear that they'll be targeted by the other guys, and consequently, maybe they'll just do the right thing.
Well, and it makes me want to ask the question then: should the Bloomberg side of it just support them? Not necessarily run threat ads against them or run negative ads against them, but give them support in a way that isn't necessarily a threat to them, but makes it easier for them to win. I mean, that's what they're worried about.
Well,
they're worried about getting primaries.
That's right. So then give them the ability to, be on their side, to fight against the NRA. That's the kind of thing they will do, and that's what they did in the Jesse Jackson. They took there was a woman they wanted who was really strong on this stuff, and they helped her prevail. And they were running ads against Toomey. As soon as he started talking to Manchin, they pulled those ads. So they're saying, "Hey, listen, we're going to have a seat at this table, and we're going to play the game just like the NRA plays the game." And so I really wish them the best. And I think they're working with this group that Gabby Giffords and her husband have founded. It could be that the only way to fight fire from the NRA is with fire. Just come back at them. Because I think more America, there are, you have, no, I don't know, I'm just babbling now, but we've got to get as scary to these so-called representatives of ours as the NRA is.
Well, again, it goes back to the old story of their constituents are not us, don't have our points of view. So it's much easier for them to be scared of their constituents with the NRA than it is to be scared of a bunch of liberals talking to them from the Northeast.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, whatever. I just want people to be aware that the chance of anything good coming out of this is not great.
Well, that's, they have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
See ya.
Bye. Chris writes, I find it interesting that Hurricane Katrina happened in late August. And yet we got to Hurricane Wilma by the end of hurricane season, which is November 1st. So that would be September and October. So in September and October, we had that many hurricanes. We had LMNOPQRSTUVW. We had 12 hurricanes. Yeah, that's what it must mean. And Wilma must have been a real bitch. But I don't remember. I don't. Well, I think that's it. The sun's out. This weather is so fickle. Okay, you guys, that's it for this week. Sokolowski has, yes. He's going to miss us, I guess, because he's going to be gone for a few weeks, right? Well, we wanted to get one last... He misses you. He wants to come in on Monday, and we will happily have him. And then Tuesday, I hope my sister will be able to join us. Wednesday will be Chris Pata. Thursday, Friday, who the hell knows? I've got some authors coming up, and... well, mostly I just like talking to you and hearing back from you. I so appreciate it. Tonight, if you want to get more political talk, God, why you would want it, I don't know. Feel free to tune in to WQED television at 7:30, where I will be, along with the other compatriots there, on the program strangely called 4802. Have a great weekend.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.